Welcome, Obie, to the Wholesome Crypto podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, thanks, Rudy.
Appreciate it. Yeah, of course. We know you from being the founder and CEO of Record Shop, which is NFT collectible music marketplace. It's up and coming, so I like to see why it's built and the story behind it. But before we get into all that stuff in the crypto world, I'd love to know more about Obie and what was he doing even before hearing about Bitcoin or Ethereum.
Yeah, sure. So I'm in my late 40s. I've been in the technology field professionally for close to 30 years. Mm-hmm. I had a very successful web development and design agency called HashRocket. I started about 12 plus years ago and ended up selling it. And around that time, I wrote a book called The Rails Way, which is considered the Bible of Ruby on Rails development. Nice. Ruby on Rails is one of the major frameworks used for custom website or web application development. So that was kind of that was like my first kind of significant claim to fame.
Congrats.
Sort of deal. And then I sold that, and I've been involved in a number of different entrepreneurial kind of ventures ever since, including a very large one that worked out pretty well called Andela, which some of your viewers may have heard of. It now operates in over 80 countries around the world. But when we started out, we had a pretty audacious goal, which was to train 100,000 young Africans to be world-class software developers.
Nice.
And I had a bunch of Nigerian co-founders, and I was the CTO, and was there in 2014 and 2015 as we were very rapidly growing, and became the largest VC-backed startup in Africa.
Wow! Congrats on that too.
Thanks, man.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I'm not a stranger to pretty big, kind of ambitious, revolutionary ideas, mm-hmm. And this is one of the reasons that crypto's appealing, and given the amount of time I've been in working on web applications and stuff, like basically since the mid 90s, got involved in programming, and I was one of the first people to do Java. I've seen a lot of technological revolutions, and
yeah, I bet.
I know that when there's a chance to catch a big wave, you go for it.
So was that always, like, growing up as a child, was it always in your realm, like tech, building something on your own, entrepreneurship, like always kind of carving your own path?
So yeah, I had a lemonade stand as a kid. Grew up in the 80s, and a working class neighborhood. My dad was very entrepreneurial, so I kind of got it from him. He sold encyclopedias. He sold vacuum cleaners.
That's awesome.
A lot of that sort of. He sold real estate in the 80s in New Jersey, and that was probably the most lucrative years. Mm-hmm. For our family. I'm the oldest of 5 kids, so normally money was kind of tight. So I grew up having to work for whatever whatever I wanted to get. So, I worked all sorts of jobs. I worked as a DJ, which we'll talk about momentarily. But I installed car stereos and alarms. I also did my fair share of selling stuff. I sold long distance credit cards. I sold beepers.
It's the real entrepreneurial grind.
I had to hook up on wholesale boots. I used to go to Union City, New Jersey, to Bergen Line and sell work boots out of the trunk of my car. I did a lot of things. I worked janitorial. I had a window washing business. I shoveled snow, cut lawns.
I love that. That's such a good backbone to have too, especially in starting any company, because for me, I've done things like shoveling snow, even repairing gaming consoles like Xboxes and Nintendo Wii's and all that stuff. I'm like, I don't know what to do, but I know how to fix these things. Hopefully someone in my school want it fixed, and sooner than later you find out oh wow, people need this as a service. and branching out from there.
I feel like some people have that spark, and some people don't.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously the world is getting more and more competitive in terms of how you add value and how it can pay off.
Exactly. So during this time, like you're building, working different odd jobs, building your own businesses. Being in the tech industry, you're definitely really close to all the latest news of what's happening.
Yeah.
Especially even seeing like the internet.com boom happen. When did you first was that
the first one?
Yeah, the first one.
Yeah.
When did you first hear about cryptocurrency, and was it through a friend or just like online? How'd you feel when you first heard it?
Yeah, I probably heard about it first through Hacker News, I would assume. And
It's funny you mentioned Hacker News. I feel like now they just don't even want to deal with crypto.
No, yeah, it's ironic how far they've that community has turned against it. But at the time, it was a lot more open minded.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know for sure where I heard about it, but I've been to Burning Man proper like 4 times, and I've been to more regional burns than I remember.
Nice.
Alchemy and Euphoria in the Southeast, and like kind of all over the place. So I'm in with a lot of the kind of burner subcultures, and buying diverse illicit substances on Silk Road and other dark markets was definitely a big thing. So
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of my first exposure to holding to procuring Bitcoin and using it, and just like probably some of your other guests, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I think back to kind of
And
the kind of Bitcoins I had, the amount of Bitcoins I had at certain times.
Yeah, and that's
during those years, and what would have happened if I had just tucked some away just for shits and giggles. I remember it rallying at some point, and I was up like 40-50x, I think.
Wow.
And with what I did have, and I hadn't even bought it as an investment. It was just had spiked, and I sold it, and I was like, just patting myself on the back because I was so happy about, and I think I may have cleared like $30,000-$40,000.
That's awesome. I mean, that's
in profit, which is not that much now in retrospect, but at the time it was like just free internet money.
You didn't know back then what was going to happen with it. You couldn't have known.
No, I couldn't have known, and unfortunately, did not feel it. Felt like I could put that money to better uses and other things.
Yeah, I mean that's like the most common story too, is just people like playing around with Bitcoin because hearing friends using it for whatever, and then having so much of it, trading it on Mt. Gox, getting burned from that, wishing they held everything. So it's the most common starting point for a lot of people, including myself. Like I remember, for me it was like when I was in high school, so I didn't have any money, and I couldn't even buy any, but I was like into tech, so I just kept watching Bitcoin and seeing what it was doing just because I was into it. But yeah, I definitely wish I had like some type of miners running.
Speaking of miners, actually, my son, who's now 22, almost 23, at the time that Dogecoin came out, I thought it was hysterical, and at that time we're a Mac family, but he was begging me for a PC. And I said, if I get you a PC, I'm going to get you parts, and you're going to put it together the way God intended, And he was down with that. I mean, he's kind of geeky. He's actually a software engineer. He graduated from Georgia Tech and works at Microsoft now. So, I mean, he was definitely already kind of following in my footsteps. So he was down with it, and we researched parts and CPU and memory and drives and all this stuff. And he, of course, he wanted it for gaming. So he wanted like a really, really badass
top of the line
graphics card. And it was like $400 or $500 at least. And I was like, the only way that I'm gonna give you that money to buy such an expensive graphics card is if you mine with it. And we had discussed the whole Dogecoin thing because we thought it was hysterical. And he said, "All right, I'll run it as a mining rig and do Dogecoin." And he figured out how to do it. And then he put the rig together. And I saw pictures I was looking at them the other day from, and he put this big rig together and he was mining Dogecoin and he got quite a bit, but he was doing it through a pool.
So they took some, yeah.
And he, after a few months, the pool got hacked and he lost everything he had. And he got pissed off and didn't do anymore. So I was like, he also has a story of how much he would have had.
Oh, poor guy. Shoot. And that's like, he's probably mining tens of thousands back then.
That was crazy. It was right in the very beginning.
I have a friend who did the same thing, but I think he sold it all a long time ago. So
yeah. Well, yeah, he probably would have sold it as well. I wonder how many people that applies to. It must be an order of magnitude more than people.
Absolutely, because you only hear the really awesome successful stories or the really, really bad stories, but there's so many people in between that just shit happened to them. Like, fuck it, like, I'm done. Like, not gonna mention it again.
But I definitely, I mean, I got a Coinbase account when it came out. I mean, I had a number of different random purchases over the years, and I kept up with it. And significantly, I got into CryptoKitties.
Oh, nice.
When that launched. Not in a huge way or anything, because I was just too busy with other stuff. But I got a few, and I played around with them, and I breeded some. And I was consulting CTO at the time. And my client, one of the founders at the company I was consulting at, really got into it. He loved it. He thought it was the most hysterical, fucking funny thing ever. And he wouldn't stop talking about it. And that kind of propelled me to pay a little more attention to it, because he got into it, and it was the first time that he was using MetaMask or anything like that. So I kind of gave him a crash course
how to safely use that.
So it kind of propelled. I got to send him a thanks for that. His name's Max. But anyway, that was cool because as a programmer, it kind of started putting together. It got my gears turning about, this is pretty sweet. One of the projects I worked like in the mid 2000s was like little AI friends, kind of like Tamagotchis, but like characters that would that you would interact with on your computer. And I was thinking, it'd be cool if you could have like these characters represented as NFTs. You could sell them, they could live on the blockchain, all that stuff. And I was like really, really into kind of the possibilities of the EVM and whatnot. So it just like sparked. It was a little spark that never went away. Unfortunately, I didn't actually like delve into it. I had other things going on. But it was always in the back of my mind that there would be something, that there was something there. And then around like towards the end of 2020, I was kind of looking for something to do. So I part own a consulting agency now called Magma Labs, and the economy has been going gangbusters, during the pandemic for consulting and stuff like that. So we were like super oversold, and I'm kind of the guy who does the sales for them and whatnot. So I was super not busy. So I was like working on music and making an album and stuff like that. But I was really bored, and there was like no live gigs and
everything.
I got tired of. I had been doing some Twitch streaming, but I got tired of that. And I was looking for a startup, and I started working on a concept called SpinFT, which was send us your vinyl. We'll put it in a vault. Like we'll grade it and classify it and put it in a vault and give you an NFT that represents that particular piece of vinyl.
So, physical piece with digital piece.
Yeah, it was like a digital derivative of the physical item in a vault, kind of using the vinyl itself as a store of value. the reason I was thinking along these lines, because I got like 27 boxes of vinyl sitting in a garage in Atlanta that I've collected over the years, like basically my DJing collection from way back. And when I relocated to Mexico in 2017, I wasn't able to take it with me. It was like too big and heavy. And it's been sitting there ever since. It's probably rotting because it's not a dry garage, you know, and I've been really annoyed about it. And I was like, man, if I could just send this for safekeeping and have a way of buying and selling it in the way that you buy and sell vinyl on Discogs, which is the main place where you do that.
Okay.
Because the problem is on Discogs has a thriving, very liquid market for vinyl, but you have to physically send the vinyl. It's just a pain in the ass. I mean, like who wants to be sending stuff through the post? That's
that's what MP3s are.
Yeah, well, essentially. So that's kind of where it started snowballing. So I very quickly figured out that was not what I actually wanted to work on. And that was right around February, and I was in a lot of Clubhouse discussions at the time.
Oh yeah, it was Clubhouse booming, man.
And I was in a lot of discussions kind of about the future of music, and people were starting to talk about music NFTs. And I was watching what was going on with NBA Top Shot, and I was like, I could be the one to do this. Like I got the right mix of investors and technical chops and network of people and stuff like that. So I just started working on that and on the vision for that.
So it sounds like the whole blockchain industry just kind of made sense to you. The whole technology behind it, using it as a currency, using it as a means of data ownership and transferring data. That didn't come off as odd to you, did it?
No, that didn't come off as odd to me. And wanting to have store value, I've totally gotten I've understood and appreciated the value of Bitcoin as a store of value since the beginning. Being in Atlanta and being surrounded by I wouldn't call myself a libertarian at all, but being surrounded by libertarians and kind of influenced to some degree or another, it's kind of like, I get it.
It makes sense.
I get why you would want your money to not be inflated away. You're buying for stuff like that. Like I also see the other side, where the government needs economic levers and things like that. So I get it. It also does not seem like a panacea, to me, to go back to that kind of economy. So I would not consider myself a Bitcoin maximalist in any way. But I kind of alluded to this earlier in the beginning. Like it's a significant sea change, and it's a significant technology
for sure.
So regardless of the ideology or the politics or the motivations of the players, the fact that it's happening and that it exists and it's real presents opportunities, many different opportunities. And I've seen that happen over and over again in different ways, sometimes big, sometimes small. And I owe a lot of the success of my career to it. So I'm not retired yet. Like, why wouldn't I jump on it? It's like the biggest thing of my generation.
Exactly. It definitely is, because it's slowly becoming what we use daily, or I hope so. I mean, it's like, I can almost like think about the years I've been talking about Bitcoin to like friends and family or coworkers, whoever it is. And early on, everyone's like, what are you talking about? You sound mad. You're crazy. Okay, this is silly. Yeah, it's going to become this price, but it's going to go back down. It's like the humor part of it for the mainstream is like dwindling down, and it's being taken more seriously as like, oh, this is actually becoming a viable product. Let's put money into it or people into it. So it's wild watching that happen live.
Yeah. And it introduces, it gives you the ability to tackle some really, really ambitious business problems and be taken seriously, right? Like, people give you money. I from the very beginning when I started Record Shop, I was like, music business is completely fucked. This is an opportunity to completely change it, right? And if you weren't saying that in a crypto frame, good luck. Like they're the chances of someone like
Just shutting you down.
funding that are slim to none. But you say, well, yeah, we're going to use blockchain technology to do it, and then people's ears perk up and they're like, oh, good. Because it's understood that in these times of change, it's entirely possible to, that something like that could happen. Like many of the people holding the purse strings, right? Those investors, they saw what happened in the 90s and the early 2000s with the internet.
Exactly. And there's that's the thing when you say I'm using blockchain tech, and it's also saying there's nothing you can do to stop it because it is on the blockchain and it's permissionless. So it's going to happen one way or another, and it's all up to the community and the people to actually make it happen. So it's one of my favorite things about it. So how did you get into creating Record Shop? What was the origin story behind that?
So like I mentioned earlier, like it seemed like there was a good opportunity, and like I might be the kind of at the right place at the right time with the right people. And given that I've raised venture capital multiple times and even had some successful outcomes, so I was able to raise kind of the initial equity for the startup pretty easily. Nice. I recruited my best friend Nate as CTO. He just had the timing happened to be good. We were best friends since childhood.
That's awesome.
40 years at this point, both programmers, and have wanted to work on something together for a long time. And my co-founder Paula is she has 15 plus years as an artist manager and involved in electronic music events. And her partner Rich Solarstone is one of the most well-known and well-loved DJ producers in trance music, which is like a subgenre of EDM. So they run a label called Pure Trance, and they had put out some of my music. So they were one of the first people I talked to. And Paul in particular is Dutch, and the Dutch kind of have a well-earned reputation for being very blunt and very realistic and whatnot. So I was like, if I can convince Paula, then I can probably convince anyone. And she thought it was a terrible idea for like a good 2 hours, and like told me why. But after about 2 hours, I was on a long drive back from Guadalajara Airport to my house in Colima, Mexico. And during that call, I kind of turned her around, and the light bulb, I could sense that the light bulb was starting to go off, and she was starting to go, what about this? What about that? And what if we do this? And what if we do that? And like by the end of the call, she was really like, oh wow, like possibilities are pretty staggering. So she slept on it, and the next day she was like, oh man, I could barely sleep. I was so excited. So she agreed to come on as a co-founder and kind of work with me on it. And from there, we just started recruiting a team. And we were, I don't know if you've heard of Stacks, but we were, a very good friend of mine named Trevor kind of runs their accelerator. So I was talking to him about doing Record Shop on Stacks, which is kind of a side chain for Bitcoin that lets you, has a smart contract kind of layer. And eventually kind of found out I knew about Flow and I knew about Dapper Labs, but when I finally talked to them and we got the pitch on Cadence, and we realized we wouldn't have to deal with any of the proof of work baggage, PR baggage, and that they were far along, having the most successful at the time NFT platform, in NBA Top Shot was a pretty compelling argument to go with them. Plus they shared something that's very fundamental to my design philosophy for Record Shop, which is that I'm much, much more interested in trying to get millions of mainstream users to use Record Shop than I am in just grabbing some crypto people that think it's cool.
Yeah, trying to do a pump and dump scheme on it or something. They actually.
Well, I'm glad you said it. I didn't necessarily want to say it, but it's just the short-term thinking I think it's probably safe to say short-term thinking pervades, NFTs and crypto in general. And then if you're trying to do something revolutionary that's going to take years, it's not compatible with that kind of mindset.
Absolutely. And that's like, I love, the NFT community. I think there's a lot of good that can come from it, especially, helping out artists, creating a community that works together. But a lot of it is seemingly the same. Here's 10,000 images that can promise you a community that will work on generating more money for you for holding it. But I'm like, what else do you do other than just trying to generate money for holders and increasing the value of it? Where's the public good? Where's the usefulness in the mainstream other than creating more dollars?
Yeah. I mean, the majority of the projects operate in some, on Ponzi kind of dynamics. And you look at that and you go, and I think any rational person that looks at that just kind of wonders how long it might go on.
Mm-hmm. Reminds me of ICOs.
They might still play in it, right? Because it doesn't mean there's not money to be made, but
yeah,
I'm not, I'm not hungry. I'm not doing this to make money. I'm doing this to make a significant impact and leave a legacy, right?
That's exactly it. That's what we need more of.
Well, yeah. It's more compelling too, because it comes across, right? Like we were at this point, we have like 200 signed exclusive deals with some pretty legendary
That's awesome.
Music acts and brands and record labels. And I think the reason that we've been able to do that is because our heart's in the right place, right? Like a lot of us are musicians ourselves, actually, at Record Shop. So we're kind of building it to scratch our own itch. But when you're involved with people whose only aim is to get rich or make money, like you can usually tell, right? Like even if they're saying otherwise, their actions kind of betray.
Yeah, actions speak pretty loud.
Yeah, exactly. So, sometimes I shit on those kind of people online. I tried to tone it down a little bit because I realized it was pissing off some people that, could legitimately be fans of the concept and, humans are complex beings. And,
absolutely.
I'd be hypocritical if I said, there haven't been times in my life where money was the main motivator, for something I was doing.
Yeah. And I think that's a key thing. It's not to say that money is not a good motivator or not a motivator for people in general. Everyone needs money in this day and age to survive. It's hard to survive without it. And it's definitely a good influence on the job you choose and the career path you take and things that you do. But it's just that, yeah.
One of the, I'm not sure why your podcast is called Wholesome Crypto, but I'll go on a limb.
Yeah.
Without going like full Jordan Peterson or whatever, like there's a reason that avarice and greed are generally considered negative personality traits, and bad parts of humanity. And one of the challenging things about being in crypto is that there's these subcurrents of avarice and greed, and they get subverted into some sort of weird pagan prosperity gospel, where everyone's going to get rich. You just have to say the right things and, follow the right rituals. And it does feel like a fucking religion at times, and Twitter is church and you got to give testimony and you got to say good morning every morning, and so you got to testify about how you made it, or how you think we're all going to make it, whatever the case may be. And, I was actually raised in a cultish religion called the Jehovah's Witnesses. Some of your listeners might be familiar with, you might even be familiar with. I don't know, but it's
Catholicism, but close enough.
Yeah, but it like having been raised in that and then left it, at a fairly young age, I was just kind of repulsed by, you know, the pressure to conform, and like, you know, how you can get excluded if you're, you know, if you're not aligned with the right thinking, or, you know, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so just generally get turned off by cultish elements. And in essence, it is a technology, right? So like, you know, there's many different ways to exploit a technology, like, you know,
Absolutely.
without bringing dogma into it.
Absolutely. And I've actually mentioned that before, where like I think I wrote an article about how dogmatic crypto can become to some people. And one of the things I love about crypto is that it taught me so many different elements of how humans work, how political policies work, money works, how economy works, how the game theory works. It's like, wow, this is all these things put together in one. And it's kind of showing like this is a permissionless technology that anyone can use however they like. So if there's any cult out there that wants to use it, they can. We can't stop them. If there's any freedom activists that want to use it, they can use it. If someone who wants to do good with it, like public goods, they can use it, make music, NFTs with it. You can. It's crypto isn't biased or polar or anything. It's free for anyone to use, and the people. That's why it's called Wholesome Crypto. It's the people behind it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know the people behind that are building these projects, who they are, and why they're doing what they're doing. And my favorite part is because they're trying to make an impact, a good impact.
Positive impact. Yeah. And I think there's so much more to go. Like, I think we're still at the very earliest stages, you know, still building the horseless carriages, that sort of thing. I think we're starting to see glimpses of, you know, what could be possible in terms of like for instance, if you know, if we still have a few more minutes, play to earn is kind of one of my favorite things to criticize nowadays. And it's funny because I've been influenced by, you know, by some play to earn thinking, but the fact that it's a grind, or that you're trying to, you know, turn some sort of video game into something, essentially where it falls down for me is that the activity that the humans playing to earn are doing is a useless activity. There is no value creation going on, right?
Absolutely.
And the fact that that is still able to yield something feels to me like it's a Ponzi that has a ticking, you know, a ticking clock. It's on an expiration date on it. And I hate to throw shade at any particular project because I know every project has its nuance. But the biggest shade I can throw at is that it feels like a horseless carriage, right? It feels like, oh, video games. People love playing video games. How can we make playing video games profitable? You can't make playing video games profitable. Like,
well,
you know, I mean, there's some science fiction ways. I forget what book it was in.
Ready Player One or something.
No. That was kind of like a metaverse as a fun place, right? Like place where you go to blow off steam. But there's it might have been a Neil Stephenson book, or I can't remember, but there was there was this, it was like a future like a sci-fi sort of thing where I think it was airport security or like anti-terrorist kind of monitoring sort of stuff was done by players on the internet playing a game where they had to identify the people that look suspicious. And they had like all this metadata about, you know, stuff and whatnot. And they like gamified the experience of security.
Wow. It's,
you know,
that's an interesting concept.
This is kind of mind blowing. Probably some civil liberty concerns there, probably some dystopian aspects to it. But I think that some of the technologies that we're seeing emerge enable what I like to call work as play kind of possibilities. So the way that work as play manifests on Record Shop is that there are roles within the music industry which are interesting, valuable roles. So, like for instance, A&R, which is the people that look, you know, that scout for talent and help develop talent, and marketing street teams, which is people go out and create hype and like, let people know about events and things like that. And we think we can actually gamify the experience of doing that online in these novel ways that are metaversy and are definitely enabled by ownership aspects of NFTs. But you're providing value. You're not just speculating. You're not just buying a thing hoping that the line goes up. You're doing a service for another human being or for humanity in some way, right? Let's say it's uncovering new talent or curation.
Mm-hmm.
And then the result of that work is something of tangible value that happens to be represented as an NFT or happens to be backed with an NFT, which means it's liquid.
Yeah.
Meaning you can sell it. And to me, that trend's utopian, right? Like that has utopian possibilities, because if it's all on the internet and there's good liquid markets for these kinds of things, it opens up the ability to have fun with your work across the entire world, right? It doesn't matter where you are as long as you have an internet connection.
Yeah.
And in fact, people in the global south, people in developing countries, kind of have a somewhat level playing field when it comes to being able to participate in some of these value creation loops.
Exactly. That's like the beautiful thing with the internet. It's slowly leveling the playing field for developed and non-developed countries. Yeah, I'm glad to see how much more this community is developing in terms of being able to bring more public goods, like different companies like Gitcoin. They're working on, providing open source software opportunity to be funded by the community. A lot of people that I've been talking to recently also have been working on giving back to the community by using whatever income they get from their projects to help other developers be able to develop their own projects. And as we're in this industry, I definitely do want to know. I mean, crypto is a 24/7 industry. You run your company off of crypto. But how does Obie take his time off of crypto? What do you do on the side? What do you do for fun? How do you let go? If you do, maybe, some people say they're 24/7 to crypto.
No, actually, I'm a music artist. I produce electronic music. I'm working on a debut artist album that I started during the pandemic, and before I started Record Shop, it's over 50% done. So yeah, I tend to just duck into the studio when I can to blow off steam and kind of make progress on that, or DJ. Like I was at Cancun Music Week. We had some panels lined up about NFTs and music, and I got a chance to DJ. I ended up DJing a pool party for about 3.5 hours.
Wow, that's pretty fun.
At a resort in Cancun, so that was a lot of fun. I've been a DJ since I was a teenager, and it's one of my favorite things to do. So
nice.
But it's good to, I'm very lucky, and I feel blessed to be able to work on something that combines my passions.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, you're giving other artists an opportunity to get themselves a chance to show off who they really are, especially if they don't have the opportunity to show their music off anywhere else.
I think it's I think it's just like in terms of music NFTs in particular, the whole industry's kind of been broken in substantial ways as far as people being able to make money from their music.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people think that it's a genie that's out of the bottle and it's not coming back. But for a lot of us, that's a future that's kind of hard to contemplate, because if the only music that makes money is pop, is pop music, then it means that everything else that's not pop music is kind of relegated to a hobby level,
Yeah. And that's like the mainstream, but I feel like especially EDM has become a lot more accepted, and I don't know, maybe because I'm living in the city area again, but the EDM scene's like growing. People are going. It's
Yeah,
awesome to see.
the EDM scene is strong, but even within EDM, there's commercially successful EDM
Yeah, true.
and pop stars, who are virtually indistinguishable from any other pop star.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's underground music, and the experimentation and the progress and the really interesting stuff is generally at the fringes, where commercialization is not a concern. But those artists still need they still need to make money. I mean,
So
somehow it doesn't
yeah,
have to be a lot of money, but it's just helpful if they can make some money so that they don't have to fucking drive an Uber or something. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
there's so much music that gets produced by artists who have to have like a regular day job, which is soul sucking and exhausting and doesn't like kind of let them give their best. And like, I actually saw examples of artists who have been successful in their careers and have, in some cases, millions of fans, that were running out of money during pandemic because they couldn't tour.
wow,
Selling equipment. I mean, the worst case scenario, I heard of someone that was actually almost out in the street. So, the bar is pretty low in terms of improving that situation.
and wow. So as people, I guess, for listeners here, what would be a good way to find and listen and contribute to this, to up and coming artists versus listening to your radio or whatever's on top hit Spotify?
Well, fundamentally, I mean, certainly you could check out Record Shop, and I know it's kind of hard to figure out how to spell it without bells, but you can just type Record Shop the way that it sounds, recordshop.com, into the browser, and it'll come up. And we're doing our part, on Record Shop, but in general, what the good fight that we're fighting is the fight against passive music consumption. So if you're truly, if you truly consider yourself a music fan, just recognize that what the big platforms like YouTube and Spotify want is to commodify music. Like, they want you to think about music in terms of playlists and moods and
Yeah,
algorithms, and I want to listen to workout music or dinner party music. And the reason they want to do that is not your convenience; it's their profit lines. Because especially in the case of Spotify, who's been identified as using ghost producers in order to, and podcasting and stuff to try to get people to listen to less music that they pay royalties on, because it's better for their bottom line.
yeah,
Like, lo-fi hip hop, and some of the ambient stuff that they do, like, they actually use corporate ghostwriters that they don't have to pay royalties to. And then they dilute the amount of money that they pay out, their royalty streams, because they get to keep more of it. Just, if you're a music fan and you care about the well-being of artists and stuff like that, just think about how your own consumption habits affect the people who make that music that you care about. But that said, I mean, that really, fighting against that really is like trying to boil the ocean. And part of, because it is convenient, and it's going to be with us for a long time. And so, what we're trying to do at Record Shop is not to change that consumer behavior or take away your streaming or whatever. We just want to make streaming more like FM radio.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And you're probably a little too young to, to recognize exactly what I'm talking about. But like back, 30 years ago, you didn't buy every single freaking CD that came out.
No.
That you like, of the music you liked. You bought CDs of your favorite artists because you wanted to listen to that music over and over again, or have the special experience of having the booklet that came in the CD, or the liner notes that came inside of the vinyl, or whatever the case may be, or you wanted to put the record up on your wall or on your shelf, or you wanted your friends to be able to look at your collection. It was an expression of who you were, but you still listened to the radio, right?
Yeah.
Like when you were in the car, or when you just wanted passive music consumption, right? You didn't want to think about what you were putting on. And like we want streaming to be FM radio of today's generation, where it is, sure, it's a dominant way that you listen to music in the car or whatever when you're cooking or working out. But when you're the way that you express who you are as a musical being and as a fan is by buying stuff that's actually valuable to the artist.
That makes, yeah, I never thought of it that way either, because again, I'm not a musical person, and I do remember buying CDs of artists that I did love, and I was like, oh yeah, look at this album cover. Look at I used to read every like the 12 songs that were on it. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Like I feel a part.
People treat music NFTs that way. Like they tell us all the time.
That's awesome.
They'll mention it in Discord, or in some cases they'll even write to me directly and be like, "Oh, this is so cool."
That's a good feeling.
We're on our service when we launched was like, "Oh, I just bought a pack, and I spent about 45 minutes listening to every single song. It felt like Christmas morning when I got some CDs."
That's amazing. So that makes me want to ask the final question of, what is your favorite wholesome crypto moment? Something that warmed your heart in the crypto industry.
In the crypto industry, well, I mean, I'll pick an obvious moment. I mean, we've distributed at this point. We're about to send out new checks, but we've distributed over 600,000 in revenue to to our affiliated artists, and the amount of gratitude we've gotten from some of them, because it like really made big differences. Like I know one of our artists was able to buy a car that they needed.
Wow.
Another artist redid their studio. There's some artists that have been able to pay bills and rents and stuff like that. So, it does make a difference. There are possibilities to make really, really good, positive, wholesome, to use your word, kind of impacts in people's lives. It's not just about getting rich or helping the rich get richer. I mean, there's certainly music NFT platforms and stuff where what they're doing is with pop artists, with artists that are already famous. And it's like, yay, I just helped this rapper make like, 10, $20 million more, hallelujah. They didn't need the money. It's just a money grab, and it's fine. I don't actually fault. I want to make that very, very clear. I don't actually fault anyone for doing a money grab. Like
if it's there for you,
if it's there, grab it. Why not? Like as long as you're not stealing it or whatever. It's just that for some of us that are maybe have been around a little bit longer or in a different stage in our lives, like maybe we already have enough money, or maybe we have already done, some of the money motivated things. And now what we're looking to do is just kind of, leave a mark, or make a difference or work on something more significant. For me, the thing with Andela was really kind of a big life-changing thing. You know what I mean? Like I saw what was possible, it's kind of like venture at its best, right? Like my venture capital at its best, right? Like sometimes venture capital is kind of shitty, but the CEO of Andela, Jeremy, he had a previous exit with a company that went public, and so he parlayed that into a pretty crazy idea, right? But the thing with VCs is if you've already had an exit, they're very likely to just rubber stamp whatever the next thing you want to do is, right?
Yeah.
It's just the way it works. So he got together with our Nigerian co-founders, and they came up with this wacky idea of like, hey, Africa could be, could leapfrog India as like the place where there's all these genius programmers.
Yeah.
Because the pool of talent there is so untapped, right? Because there's so little opportunity there, and yet there's so many brilliant people. And I got involved, and I actually spent time in Nigeria, and I just saw how transformational money applied the right way could be, right? Like it was in their faces. It was like these young people, they were all kind of in their 20s, they were all so, kind of ambitious and grateful, and like in the best ways, like they got it and they were giving it their all, right? And it was rewarding the ones with the most grit and perseverance. So I know it's kind of diverging from
No,
crypto, but what I'm trying to say is that they're knowing that there are such deep pockets, amongst some people that hold crypto bags. You know, I know that there's a lot of potential to do good.
yeah,
There is a lot of potential to do transformational things. Actually, what was a very warm moment? I'll give some love
yeah. Tell me.
and props and respect to someone who may not always get it, who is Metakoven. So Metakoven's a big investor in Record Shop. He's the one that bought the Beeple artwork,
Oh,
and
okay.
I know there was some controversy around the Beeple artwork. But when I actually got together with Metakoven and Tubador in Mexico City, and we were able to hang out for a few days, and I got to know them pretty well. And one of the things that really, really warmed my heart is that the reason they invested in Sound Token, which is our utility token that we've done a private sale for, is that they want, like, he wants to make a dramatic impact in underserved communities, like developing nation music communities. So he told me that the reason he was buying the token was not to flip it. The reason he was buying the token is to give it to music artists so that they can mint on Record Shop.
That's awesome.
You
That's,
know, so there you go. I mean, I guess that's the kind of thing you're talking about, if I understand you correctly.
I mean, it just, yeah, share what's good to you, and it is.
Yeah,
It's awesome that he's doing that. And I'm excited to like see how Record Shop grows and keeps continuing because, this industry is kind of new to me, music industry. I'm not
yeah,
that familiar with it. And you've definitely, opened my eyes a lot. And I
cool, man.
appreciate that. So,
Yeah, but thanks for having me on the show, man.
yeah,
It's been a lot of fun. It's a lot of hard work. It's an uphill battle for sure.
yeah.
A lot of days, and it seems like we're going into kind of a bear cycle and stuff like that. So
It's a time to grow or develop. I mean, it's time to develop here.
yeah, so there's a lot of potential. But yeah, man, awesome to meet you. I love the concept of the show.
Thank
And
you.
hopefully you can have me back sometime.
Oh, for sure. And then thank you for joining me. And I love what you're building. And I can't wait to have you on again with the next thing that's that's happening in your life.
Cool. Appreciate that, Rudy.
Thank you, Obi.
You're welcome.
Night, everyone.